Hey everyone, in this lecture we will study in detail the concept of fact in Prolog. To explain the fundamentals of Prolog, we are going to use the typical example of family relationships. Now, take a look at this example shown in the screen. What we see here is that Laura is one of Damien's two parents. That is, Laura is one of the Damien's progenitors. And essentially here we have that as Laura is a woman, Laura is the mother of Damien. And in essence what we have here in Prolog is a fact. So a fact is basically information that we provide to Prolog database. And this information Prolog can learn. So this fact statement and every fact in Prolog, firstly, the relation name, so this relation name, also known as predicate name, is the name that we have here before the parentheses, before the arguments. So in this example, it is easily seen how progenitor is the relation name. Also, any fact consists of arguments. So in this example shown here, we see that we have two arguments. And the arguments are Laura and Damien. Within any fact, the arguments are always inside the parentheses. Here Laura is the first argument, Damien is the second argument. So first, the fact is information that we provide to Prolog database, and this information Prolog can learn. Any fact consists of a relation name, also known as the predicate name. That is the word that we have before the parentheses, or the string that we have before the parentheses. Then the fact also consists of arguments, which are inside the parentheses. The number of arguments in a fact may vary depending on the fact that we have. We may have more or less arguments. Later on we will see more examples. Now it is important to know one thing, and that is that facts in Prolog always finish with a final period. This period indicates that the fact is finished, so it is very important to have this in mind. Here in our fact, in this example, we can see how we have the final period. Also in Prolog, the names of the relations, that is the names of the predicates, and also the arguments that refer to objects, always begin with lowercase. Here we can easily see how the progenitor, which is the relation name, begins with a lowercase. And the same for the arguments. Laura begins with lowercase, here Damien begins with lowercase, and not only that, but they are all written in lowercase. There is no uppercase in here. And this is something that we have in Prolog, always the names of the relations and the names of the arguments that refer to objects begin with lowercase. In Prolog, a set of facts, also called clauses, together with a set of rules, make up a Prolog database. On the previous example, we interpreted that Laura, the first argument of the relation, is Damien's mother, and we see how now Damien is her son, which is the second argument of the relation. However, it is very important that the students know that this order is arbitrary, and programmers can give their own meaning. So here the aspect that relations and arguments that refer to objects begin with lowercase is very important because, as we will see later in the course, when we want to define variables in Prolog, always variables begin with an uppercase letter. Whenever we want to declare and work with variables in Prolog, they need to begin with an uppercase letter. Very well, let us now study more examples of facts in Prolog. Let us begin with the fact is in love with John Sarah. So this fact declares that John is in love with Sarah. So the interpretation here is that the first argument likes the second argument. Or in other words, the first argument is in love with the second argument. And again, this interpretation is done by the programmer. It is arbitrary. We are not obligated to do it in this way. In fact, here, if we wanted to represent the inverse relation where basically Sarah is in love with John, we could also represent it in this way. So this depends on the interpretation of the programmer. Hence, it is very important to choose one interpretation and follow the same interpretation in the whole application and for the whole program. So, our interpretation here is that the first argument is in love with the second argument. Notice how again the name of the relation begins with a lowercase, and the same for these two arguments. And again we see how this fact finishes with the final period. Here it is very important to understand the difference between relation and fact. They are not the same. A fact is not a relation. A fact is information that we provide to Prolog. In contrast, the relation is basically the name that we decided to put, and the fact is the information saying that John is in love with Sarah. So when we write this to Prolog database, Prolog will learn that John is in love with Sarah. Let us now see the next example. Here we have a fact where the relation name is valuable. The argument there is only one. The argument is gold, and we finish the fact with a period. And this fact represents that whatever argument that we write here, whatever object we put here inside this parenthesis, then this argument is valuable. So here we are simply saying that gold is valuable. This is the information that we are saying to Prolog. Let us now delve into the next one. Here we have that John has a book. This is the fact, the information we provide. The relation name is has. The arguments are John and book. Notice how everything begins with lowercase. And what we interpret here is that the first argument has the second one. Finally, we have this last fact in here, in which John gives the book to Sarah. The relation name is gives. And how many arguments do we have? Well, we have actually 3 arguments in here. The first one is John, the second one is book, and the third one is Sarah. And we terminate this fact with a final period. The interpretation here is that the first argument takes the second argument and gives it to the third argument. So here John takes the book and gives the book to Sarah. So, all in all, to conclude the fundamentals of facts that we discussed on this lecture, we have that a fact is simply information that we provide to Prolog database. This information Prolog can learn. A fact consists of, first of all, the relation name, also known as the predicate name, and then inside the parentheses we have the arguments. These arguments can be objects, as we saw on this lecture, and they can also be variables, as we will see on future lectures. It is important to remember that in Prolog, facts always finish with a period, so that we indicate that the fact is finished. Finally, in Prolog, the names of the relations and also the names of the arguments that refer to objects always begin with lowercase. Very well, with this we end this introduction lecture to facts in Prolog.